Welcome back to The Secret Sauce with Sean, the show where we delve into the mind of a professional for a masterclass in what they do. Today, we've got another special guest prepared to share their story. As always, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And without further ado, we're going to get into who are you and what do you do?
I'm Lindsay Alfano, and I am a Denver Metro real estate agent.
How long have you been in realty? Because I think I know your story. Of course, they don't know your story, but I think this is kind of what makes you individual.
Yeah, absolutely. So I became a licensed real estate agent in the beginning of 2021, and I was my employing broker's assistant up here in Fort Collins area for the first 2 years.
Okay.
Became an agent myself as an individual in the Denver Metro at the beginning of 2023. So going into year 3 now and just under 50 homes sold.
Okay. And so for people who don't understand that, what does that translate to with just under 50 homes sold? Because they're not going to understand like how that translates to like being a realtor specifically. So let's maybe explore that a bit more.
Yeah. And humbly, hard to say, the average real estate agent sells between about 3 to 6 homes a year. And I'm selling about 2 or 3 a month. So. Okay.
Got it. So to put things in perspective, you're so humble, but you're really good at what you do.
Some things are just facts.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. We're off to a roaring start. It's okay. It's fine.
As soon as you said metrics, I was like, shoot, real estate agents hate metrics.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that you had them. I mean, it was super helpful.
There you go.
Tell me a little bit more about like what got it started for you? What made you interested in realty or being a realtor? And like what drove you towards that? Because a big part of the podcast and a big part of why I do this is because I kind of feel like I got curtailed into what I did in life and what job I did. And so like you are in realty and love it, or so you've told me. And so like, how did you find it and what got you into it and what kind of sparked that initial passion in you?
Yeah. My resume is pretty much a ladder of different forms of sales. I worked in hotel sales, event sales, and then graduated onto car sales, which I was doing when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, which of course, didn't work out that way. But car sales was something I really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun. I was really good at it.
I had no idea you were in car sales.
For a brief time, beginning of 2020.
Okay, good. Because you don't give car salesman vibes.
No. And I didn't know what car salesman vibes were either, right?
Yeah.
And there definitely is a thing. And it's kind of just going home at the end of the day and realizing that, you just spent all day trying to convince people and upsell people on a depreciating asset.
Yeah. Oh, okay. This is great. I wasn't going to get into this, but I'm happy you brought it up. That like the fact that you know what an asset is, or both of us knowing what an asset is so atypical for our age group, right?
Yeah.
Maybe actually, I don't know, maybe not, definitely your age group. I know I'm older than you. We won't go into that. You never ask a woman her age. But like, I know in my age group, people are kind of just starting to realize they have to think about assets, right? And like what an asset is. And there are so many mistakes about that. And that concept alone. So I never even thought about the fact that, like car salesmen are literally trying to upsell a terrible decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it made me feel, I will only lease cars probably for the rest of my life because I can't justify the way that they're purchased. And as a realtor, there's this, people are worried about having commission breath, looking like you need to get paid when you show up to the house, right? So having a nice car is almost just disguising your financial situation to look like you are in a good position to help that person, whether they want this house or not.
Okay.
That's a big aspect of it.
So commission breath is just to like put a term to a definition.
Please that
is literally giving off the essence that like if you don't get this sale, you're going to live in a box on the street and no one's going to like you forever for the rest of your life.
More or less.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't look like you desperately need to sell a house to somebody because they don't. Very rarely do they desperately need to buy a house. A house is a want, right? Me getting paid is to some extent a need. And so you have to put their wants in front of your needs every time.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I've never thought about it that way. Yep. That's so cool.
Definitely. And
okay.
Just that
so
skeeviness.
You were in used car salesmanship and then what came next? Like how did you get from used car salesman to I'm the best realtor in Northern Colorado?
Right. So I got laid off in the pandemic. And then 3 different times I tried to have a job, right? I got different waitress jobs and things like that.
Aren't they terrible?
Oh, they were so bad.
Yeah, jobs are awful.
It was so much worse in obviously COVID, right? Like just all of the restrictions.
Oh yeah, graduating. My situation was graduating college in COVID.
Right.
And then being like, I'm going to get a job with this degree I have. And everyone's like, stay at home. You don't go anywhere. You can't work.
Yeah, no, my job title right before I got into car sales was corporate events and travel, which pretty much was illegal, right? You weren't supposed to travel or hold big corporate events anymore. So I thought that car sales was going to be something essential that stuck around. And it did, but not to nearly as many employees as.
So is it at that time that when you got laid off and you left used car sales, had 2 or 3 jobs, as you said, or tried to have 2 or 3 jobs. And then what does the process look like from there? Or like, what were the steps that you took at that point?
So I gave up and accepted unemployment. To me, those things were kind of the same, right? I really, really never wanted to fill out the unemployment application.
It's terrible. And then filing your taxes that year is just screwed.
Oh my gosh, they're still mad at me to this day. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah. Luckily, 2020 was an absolute mess, and the IRS can't recover. So
somebody calls me about that year, I wasn't there.
Yeah. I wasn't born yet.
No. Okay. I keep trying not to laugh too close to the microphone.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'll fix it in post. Whatever.
Oh man.
I'll edit that
out. But so for me, unemployment at the time in the state of Colorado was like 80% of last year's paycheck plus $600 or something like that.
Okay.
And for me personally, with the amount that I was getting paid, like I think my income the year prior was like 40 or 35K or something. So I was getting paid more than ever before. When I got onto unemployment, I was like, I'm rich. And I decided to go and get my real estate license. And I was actually
I thought you were going to say like buy food.
I decided to get groceries for the first time.
I decided to finally eat. So, okay. So you decided to go get your real estate license.
Yes. I decided to get my real estate license, and it was actually in COVID. Like we were in cubes, but I actually did get my license in person. Went there every day for like 6 weeks, 4 days a week.
Okay.
Got my license at the beginning of 2021, met Rob Kittle up here in Fort Collins, and became essentially one of his assistants doing the work he didn't want to do and couldn't do, right? Because realtors are very out in the field. And it was just a constant irk to be the one out in the field. Of course, very thankful for that time that I had underneath him and learned more than I knew I needed to. And still carry all those things with me today, but glad I'm out in the field doing it myself now.
Got it. So when you say out in the field doing it yourself, this is something that I think a lot of people have always wondered about, because I know Lucky, and I think most people do know a couple, more than one realtor generally. And it always feels like a realtor is tied with I want to say the term broker, and I think that's wrong.
Brokerage?
Is it a brokerage? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I know something. God bless. So like at this time, the question in my head is, what's the reason that you are tied with a brokerage, and why aren't you just like a fully independent contractor?
Yeah, so it's interesting the way that we get paid. I've been told that people in any form of law is a very similar way that they get paid. As a lawyer, right, you can be a licensed attorney, but what happens when somebody comes to sue you? Are you just a standalone attorney? Are you at a company that's being sued? Do you have people that are backing up your decisions, that trained you to be where you are? And so for me, when I get paid at a closing table, there's a certain percentage of that that's being paid to my team lead, and there's a certain percentage of that that's being paid to, even behind him, the brokerage that we work for. Right.
It's trickle-down economics. Everyone's got to get their bills.
Exactly, right. And each one of those is providing something to me that I'm making a decision that percentage is worth it to me, that the work that they're doing behind the scenes would be more work or more money if I out-hired somebody to do it.
Okay, that's making sense. So is a brokerage similar to a normal job in that you likely will have different realtors that have different agreements with the brokerage?
Yeah, absolutely. Because everything in real estate's negotiable, right? So when I got hired onto my team, I definitely had the option to negotiate with my team lead what those percentages were.
Okay. Does that ever get I know like in a corporate office that gets weird sometimes because you'll find out what like other people get, and then you'll find out what you're getting. And because we're humble, you might be outperforming that individual that gets paid or has a better rate than you.
Sure.
Would you do the same thing that a normal person would do and try to renegotiate your rates? Or is it like once you're in, you're locked in? Or is there like a yearly assessment? Or does it change broker to broker?
Definitely changes everywhere you go, right? I mean, the way that I've always looked at it is, hey, I've been doing this for a year and I've proven myself, and maybe it's time to sit down and ask for a raise. But I absolutely would have the option to, go shop around at other brokerages and say, hey, this is what they're paying me here. Can you offer me something better or provide me more resources for the same amount?
Got it. So when your boss watches this, we're going to he or she is just going to feel slightly pressured into giving you better rates.
It's possible, but I think they know that I love where I'm at, and I've negotiated myself into a pretty good spot already. So.
Okay. See, that was smart. Yeah. I was trying to poke the bear. You just never let me get away with anything. So, and I guess, can you restate where you're at currently, or what brokerage you're currently working with?
Yeah, absolutely. As of very recently, I am working with Chris Caldwell and the Apollo Group at EXP Real Estate.
Okay, sweet. And what drew them to you, what drew them to you is a better question for them. What drew you to them over other brokerages, and what, maybe it's an experience in your past or something that may have driven you specifically to this team and specifically to this brokerage? It could also be like services offered or...
Yeah. It's such a great day to ask me this question, because I made my switch over to the team that I'm at now recently. And Chris Caldwell is somebody that I worked with in the beginning of my career, and he had made a move that at the time I wasn't able to make that move with him. And so I've been at different brokerages based on the people that were there, based on the resources that they had, based on the system, the events. And what I have learned is that the integrity of my leadership has to be over everything every single time, because real estate very much so is a game in which the people playing it can totally change it. And the fact that we have so much power can so easily be taken advantage of, that if you do not completely trust and want to do real estate the same way proudly as your team lead, they should not be your team lead. And I think that's all aspects of life too, as well. It's all aspects of life, right? I think, So it was a cultural point for you. Like, it had nothing to do with the rates, nothing to do with the services. It really came down to culture. It came down to the culture. This is something that, like, I personally hope that people will glean as they watch me more and more. Because in my why video, the big thing that I talk about is... why am I doing a podcast? It really did come down to like love of what I do, which for you is like, you love the realty process, right? I love the podcast process and everything that's included in it. It's so much greater than that, right? Absolutely. And you can't dumb it down to that. So when you're choosing something you want to do, you have to love what you do. And the second part of that is like, there has to be a purpose and a desire, but a big part of it is work-life balance, which is super challenging when you start working for yourself. I don't do podcasting full time, so my work-life balance right now is jacked. I'm just lucky that my wife is super flexible and grants me and is fully behind me and endorsing it. So she's having fun kind of doing this with me, but that's also going to be key, right? How do I incorporate, if you have a significant other, how do you incorporate them appropriately into your field or into your profession? Yeah. So, but we're diverging a little bit off the topic, getting back to you and how, like, your story. So if you could go back and think through like all of your experiences, what was like one really bad piece of advice you got? Like, did you get a piece of advice that you would have just, like, looking back now, you're like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why did I listen to that? I wish I could have never heard that. It's definitely one that I wish I would have read before I got here.
Yes! That means I'm asking good questions.
Well, yeah, and it's just something that you can think about, right, for so long. I can't think of any specific advice that was given to me, but I can say that in the beginning, that as like one of my clients could say anything to me, and I would want to somehow accommodate that client's request no matter what it was, because I worked for them. So it is an interesting learning curve to go from I am the expert, but I am hired to do what you want me to do.
Right.
And so learning that little line of in between, am I going to write an offer $100K below and offend that seller and let that agent think of me, you know, that those are the type of offers that I write. So in the beginning, if my client wanted to write, you know, $100K below, I would do it. And now, you know, there's certain things that I won't do because they're not within, you know, reality. And there's also a level of respect, right?
But I thought the customer was always right.
The client. We don't talk about customers because, and so what do they say about clients, right? Is the client always right? No. I think it's different.
The client's always right.
Yeah, the customer's always right, but.
That's why that's one of the reasons I knew having you on the show would be great, is because it's very not true.
Yeah, I
think in anything, having a certain amount of humility and realizing I'm not the best and I don't know everything.
Right.
That I think that's the first step to becoming really successful at no matter what you do.
Absolutely.
If you can look at yourself and just say like, no, that sucked.
Right.
Like, and laugh at it and then grow from it.
Totally. And just learning the right things to say, right? Because you can stand there in front of somebody and be just on camera, right? And that's how it feels. And it feels like you're supposed to say yes every time. So really just becoming confident in my responses was something that I had to grow from. For sure.
Got you. Sure. Did you get any really good advice?
It's such an easy answer to that question, and I hope something along the way will help me think of something more specific that somebody has told me, but it's over and over and over again, and it's even written into real estate contracts, right? It's not something anybody had to teach me. It's something that we've learned our entire lives, and it's acting in good faith. Because in every single real estate transaction, something has come up in which I did not know the answer. Every single one. And there always will be something new with every single client and every single house, and I am not always going to know the answer in advance. And so my job as a real estate agent really is, I'm kind of a messenger, right? Whatever we need to do, I will find the right people to do it and make it happen. And there's a lot of parts along the process where, you know, you could be under contract on one home and then the next door neighbor puts their home up for sale and you kind of want to check that one out too, but we don't want to, you know, go against the contract we have currently. There's a lot of different little things like that, you know, and in negotiations in which I could try to pull some strings, or I could acknowledge the fact that a listing agent does not have a piece of knowledge on something that I do, and I could take advantage of that. And there's a lot of opportunities to do the wrong thing in real estate, is my point. And I operate my business every single day, and I tell my clients every single day that we can do whatever we need to do, however we need to do it, as long as you can look me in the eye and I can look you in the eye and say, are we acting in good faith?
That's awesome.
Absolutely. And I think
that's like the most holistic piece of advice. I watched the movie Red One recently on Christmas Day with my wife, and it had one of my favorite quotes, which is, every decision we make is an opportunity to do good. And I'm like, that's such a interesting thing that I would say translates across business. Like, if you have the opportunity to do good and you choose not to, you may not see the immediate disparity, or you may even benefit in the short term, but like long term, that will in some way build and or manifest against you. And
that's my biggest fear, right? To have somebody 2 years from now say that when you sold me that home, you told me this and that wasn't the truth.
Yeah.
You have
so
to
just
tell
saying,
the truth.
I don't know.
Right. Tell the truth and let them make their decision every single time. If you don't know the answer, then you go find the person who does. You do not make something up for the time being.
Ooh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that. I think I've made a habit of doing that in my, like, I'm in construction right now. My boss is going to laugh if he watches this video because I call him like 5 to 6 times a day, still every day, because it's exactly the same. Like, there's so many particulars to what I do.
Right.
But that is the kind of person I am. And that's one of the reasons he likes working with me is because instead of saying, I know, or forging forth and then messing up and us eating the cost, I will just ask the question.
Right. And that's why you choose him as your boss, right? Because if you were to 100%. Go and do the wrong thing and he then has to have your back in it, how is he ever going to be able to do that?
Well, and that's the incredible part of him. One of the reasons I've stayed with him and will continue to stay with him is because he really, I know for a fact that like he has had my back in mistakes and he will. He backs his team. That's huge. I think in any business, like you have to back your team, even if it's a mistake. Yeah. Like you can back your team in their mistakes too by doing exactly what you said. Like if let's say you had an employee make a mistake, or if you or I made a mistake, you as the boss, you can always come in and say, hey, I know where we're at. My employee or my cohort has filled me in. I understand that you up to this point thought this, this, and this. Unfortunately, I am going to have to go back on some of that because you were told wrong information. It was not malicious, but we are going to get you where you need to go now. As a customer, everyone's had that experience where they've had like one good encounter with one good manager, and it's really difficult to respond in that situation with anger.
Yeah, absolutely. And vice versa as well for them and you.
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference between an honest mistake and a careless mistake.
This is one of my favorite questions. I think this is where we start to get into the real secret sauce. What was something unexpected that you learned along the way?
Unexpected that I learned along the way.
This, to help you kind of get through this could be something that maybe it was even just a blind spot for you. Like you came in thinking that you knew what you were doing, and then when you found this, it was like you walked into the street and didn't look to see the bus that was about to hit you.
Totally. And I don't think my example is perfectly along those lines, but
that's okay.
I think that the expectation that I had was that lower price point buyers and sellers would be more work for less money. And what I have learned is that that's true at the time, but those people, if you give them the same level of care that the really high price point clients get, they will be the reason that they send their mom, their dad, their cousin, their brother, the clients that are the low 200K, 300K condos, they tell their friends every single time, and their friends call you. Like I have now closed 4 or 5 deals from one client that I sold a $200,000 condo like 2 years ago. And I mean, she's now my most valuable client that I've ever had because she sold me 5 houses because of her. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not money out of her pocket. It's just her spreading my name.
What was the most challenging part of your journey?
Okay. I feel like a lot of other real estate agents would laugh, but instantly when you ask me about challenges, I just think of like a super analytical, like engineer type buyer. Those are the hard things, right? The ones, because I am somebody who believes so strongly and so freely in real estate that I'm not super emotionally attached to it. And then when I watch my clients make emotional decisions, right, they walk in and they love the idea of having Christmas in that living room, and that's enough, right? They're like, okay, do we qualify? Let's do it. That's great, right? My house, I own a duplex, which was totally just an investment. The numbers worked. The numbers made sense. So I pulled the trigger and did it.
Why wouldn't you?
Yep.
Are you apologizing for making a good financial decision?
But if you ask me what my interest rate is, like I'm pretty sure it might be like 6.4.
It's okay. Refi's coming.
I have no idea. But I also just have no idea because I believe in real estate and I don't care about my interest rate at all. Like and then you get
it's an asset.
Right. It's an asset.
It's an asset. Especially because if you keep it and you buy a second home, everything about the first one doesn't matter because someone else is going to pay for it.
But the people in my comments will say, but what if the dishwasher leaks? Then it becomes a liability. And I'm like, you're looking at a picture that is this big.
Yeah.
When real estate is the rest of your life. I encourage all my clients to never sell the first home.
I think that's the funniest one. I'm going to throw out some false numbers just to give people an idea of the ridiculousness of that statement. So if you're talking about the maintenance of a house, the most expensive thing that you probably will have to do to a house is replace the roof. It's about $25,000. Some people choose to file insurance claims over it. Others don't.
Why would you ever not?
There's benefits to not, because when you file an insurance claim, whether or not it needed to be filed, your insurance rates will go up. And that you have to look at that, because not only it's like, yeah, you're not paying as much for the roof, but if your insurance hikes up by $200 a month for the next 6 years, you just paid way more, right?
Yeah.
So I would just encourage you with all finances, take the time to understand what you're actually doing. But that being said, even if you had to replace your roof, $25,000, let's look at the average rent in Northern Colorado. I think the average rent in Northern Colorado is like somewhere around $1,850 right now, like kind of right about that range. Okay. We're going to make this easy for the numbers. Let's round up to $2,000, right? You're paying $2,000 a month for rent. Okay. There's 12 months in a year. That's $24,000. Okay. That means if you own a piece of property that someone else is living in and they are paying you average rent, they are handing you $24,000 a year. Okay. That you are not paying. Now, my dishwasher leaked. I had this happen recently. I paid $676 to have a plumber come and fix it.
And there's still a hole in his basement ceiling right now because he owns the place and he can take as much time as he wants to fix it.
Yeah, we're just going to dog me out on the internet.
It's home ownership, okay?
Yeah, okay, cool. Sick. What I'm trying to say, though, is like, you can't look at the $676 and be like, well, is it worth someone giving me $24,000 if I have to pay $676? Yes. Yes, it is. It's worth it every time. Yep. You have to be an idiot not to get that math equation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, but there's, like I said, there's people who just need the numbers to work and they're good. Then there's people who just need the emotion to work and they're good.
I was the numbers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But you also had, right? So imagine you were buying without Larissa.
Oh, this would have been a totally different situation.
Right? I mean, you would have given me like barely any criteria to look for, right? You would have been like, Northern Colorado, and I'd like it to have 4 walls and a basement would be great. And we would be looking at houses forever, right?
Yeah.
Because until something changed in your mind, right, it's super hard to trigger that decision-making factor.
So what are the hard steps? Like, if you were going to say, it's like, okay, let's say you had like a 18-year-old, hasn't gone to college, like, just white brains, nothing going on behind the eyes, walk up to you and say, I want to become a realtor. What are the absolute musts? And how would you take that individual from knowing nothing to where you are as quickly as possible?
I think it's an immediate plan. And if it was an 18-year-old, I would tell them to stay at home. That's number one, because I would have been able to... The reason that I was successful right away is because I put myself into a position where that was my only option. That was absolutely my only option. So do I contribute my success to the fact that I did not have another option?
It was that or literally eat dirt.
Yeah, I mean, so my plan when I first got started is I negotiated a deal with my mother that if she paid my rent for January and February of 2023 and I couldn't pay her back by March of 2023, then I would go get a regular job and give it up. Because that was
nice.
That was it.
I love
was my
that.
only option. And I sold 5 houses in March. So
sweet.
Yeah. So I paid her back, paid my rent back, and was able to keep going. But I wasn't able to save money in the beginning the way that I would have liked to. The same way I would have, if I would live in my parents' basement forever if I was 18 and started over.
Yeah. So live in your parents' basement, start it over. Do you have to get a realtor's license to do what you do?
You do. You absolutely do. And in the meantime, you can absolutely do certain tasks. There's assistants and then there's licensed assistants in real estate. But both of them can obviously provide value. And lots of realtors are looking for them, and lots of realtors are willing to provide that mentorship in order to receive a little bit of administrative help.
Got it. So, like, to simplify this, we're going to live at home. If I wasn't married, I'd probably still be living at home. Right. Real talk. So financially efficient.
Yes.
Second on that is going to be get a job with a realtor, would you say?
Absolutely.
And like, do you really think that like an 18-year-old with like really no hard life skills could do that and that people would be open to it?
I don't have time to put envelopes, like stamps on envelopes.
So we're talking about like, you need no critical skills.
Anything at all.
And then like from there, so you're going to get a job at a realtor or with a brokerage, I guess is the proper terminology. And then from there, like, how do you get to licensed and and I guess, what does it look like to move on from there?
Yeah. So getting your real estate license is 168 hours in the state of Colorado. This is specific to.
Well, yeah. Californians and other people can deal with it.
Yeah,
They'll figure it out.
The audience is for Colorado here. But it's 168 hours of classes that you're taking. And then once you take those classes, you are essentially taking your certificate over to a state office of state testing facility.
Yeah.
And you are passing the Colorado test as well as the national test. And there's lots of costs associated, right? The class costs money, the handbooks cost money, to take the tests cost money. And then once you get your license, it costs even more money. So there's a lot that I had to have saved up in the beginning that I didn't have, right? So I was really glad that I didn't completely get rid of my income before I started the process.
Ooh, here's some gold. So that's probably like a critical piece that I would say people don't know. Day job. Yeah, don't quit your day job. So probably, I guess we would say that becoming a realtor is not something you jump into. Like, get your starter job, get your, like, work at a grocery store, work at fast food, be a server, work at a movie theater, whatever it may be.
Right.
Like, some low-level job to provide you with the income. And if you're living at home, that's perfect anyways, because, like, you should have no cost of living. I know the people in the comments are going to get so angry. Not everyone is that situation, Sean. Mm-hmm. Okay. Get over it.
Right. But and you think about it, right? If I were to start today and I did 1 hour of my classes every day, and then I spent 15 minutes on the phone with a realtor offering if there's anything I could do for them, if there's, whatever it is, hey, I'm getting my real estate license. Most of them are going to hang up because they don't have the time to talk to you. But once in a while, you're going to talk to the right one. They're going to say something that was a little note for you to take down in your notebook. You're going to finish your 1 hour classes, and you'll be a realtor who knows every other realtor in your metro by the time, 6 months has gone by.
Dude, it really is so funny. The secret sauce is true. Because I think there's got to be a term for it, and I should have probably looked it up by this point. But this really is the nature of successful people, is that, like, you do things on small things on a daily basis create great wins, not big things on a few times a year. I think, like, and I say we, I mean, like, everyone, my generation and after us, have kind of been taught by culture that you put a bunch of effort in and, like, then you get this big result and it's a big win. And those do happen. It's not to say that they don't, but really successful people are not playing that game. They are not thinking short term. They're playing the long term, and they are doing small tasks every day to get to their goal. It's the same when you go to the gym. It's the same when you're doing a job. It's the same when you want to create something. Like, creating this podcast for me was small daily actions. It was watching one video and then buying one piece of material and then watching more videos, having conversations, like. And
it's those are all of the steps that you're taking to reach an attainable goal that you put in the steps, right, to get there. Like, you talk to people all the time and they say, yeah, I have a goal to start eating healthier.
Yeah.
But you can't reach that goal.
Yeah.
Right? To start eating healthier, there's no definition.
It's not a SMART goal.
Right. You won't ever reach it because it's not a reachable goal, right? If you want to start eating healthier, that's probably because you're trying to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Right? You're not, and the steps that you need to take to lose 10 pounds are to start eating healthier, but there's a lot of other stuff you got to do too to reach the actual goal.
100%. And I think a big part of that too is, like, set SMART goals.
Right, and know how.
Yeah, like, and so for those of you who don't know, you're like, well, yeah, Sean, like, don't be dumb. Great advice. It's like, that's not what I'm saying. SMART goals is actually an acronym, and specific, measurable, attainable, and then time oriented. Yeah. There is an R in there, and I don't remember what it is for. But go look it up. You can find the acronym. You can figure out what it means. Basically, it means that have metrics to your goal. And, like, follow through on them. That's been the biggest thing, I think, for me, that's made, like, a huge difference. Because working in project management, if you try to do all your work at once, you're going to fail.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, so many things are going to drop. You have to do you have to handhold every single project every single day.
Right. The only thing that I wanted to say that I haven't, earlier in the podcast, you had mentioned work-life balance. And I love the fact that as a real estate agent, I don't really have one, right? I'm always wearing my real estate hat when I go to church, when I go swing dancing, when I go skiing. I meet people on the chairlift. Oh,
you sound really boring.
Yeah, right? I mean, come on.
You don't have any personality.
On Tuesdays, I'm like the unemployed friend. But at the same time...
I've had those days as a project manager. I've definitely cut out a couple of times I've gone and played golf.
Yeah, right? But I have 3 houses under contract right now. One of them is with somebody that I met while dancing. One of them is a former boss of mine. And the other one I met on a chairlift. And I think that's just the coolest thing about my life is the fact that I am kind of always in it and just always trying to add value to everybody that I meet.
Sure.
So... locally here, those are the things I do. I'm also a big church goer. I love Jesus. And I'm Lindsay Sells Colorado across most platforms. So.
That's great.
With an A, Lindsay with an A.
Yeah, guys, if you do want to find Lindsay, get in touch with Lindsay. You're in the area, you're looking to buy a house. I 100% obviously back her. I've worked with her myself. She's absolutely marvelous at what she does. I will have all of her information to get a hold of her down in the description below. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
Yeah.
Great friend. Good luck with the podcast. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Nicest podcast room we could possibly have over here.
Thanks. We bled in here.
There's snacks. It's great.
Thank you, guys. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching today's episode of The Secret Sauce with Sean. If you like today's episode, holler at a homie and head over to my channel for episodes just like this one. If you have any questions, comments, or hate, drop them in the section below and hit me up for your shot in the hot seat.